Nobody is happy in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and this time you can believe it. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. These are Snap Judgments. We're back. It's Nebraska week 4, Ohio State. Heard from Ryan Day and Will Howard, primarily from Ryan Day about the defense. We don't often get, 80% defense-heavy questions for Ryan Day, but you can certainly understand why that was the case for the Buckeyes in the first press conference since the Oregon loss, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been that way, right? I thought a lot of the answers about like getting after the quarterback and changing some things up were, I suppose, what you want to hear. I just want to see now what it looks like on Saturday, right? Like, it's not the first time we've been here with Ohio State trying to get a little more out of its pass rush. I thought that was maybe the most, forceful Ryan Day has been about, like, demanding it has to be better, at least so publicly. And I asked him about, like, Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson. You followed up specifically with Nick Saban saying what he said, which was good, because I was hesitant to say that because I wasn't exactly sure how he'd take it and respond to it, but then he responded to it in a way that I thought was interesting.
I didn't want to do it, but I felt like it wasn't going to happen otherwise.
I think the interesting thing is, because the answer from Ryan Day today is like a 180-degree different answer than what he gave like 3 weeks ago where he was asked about the pass rush.
Yeah.
And he seemed almost offended at the notion that they weren't generating enough pressure. And it seems to me, at least, judging, and again, with Ryan Day and all head coaches around the country, there's a lot of reading between the lines as far as what they're saying. You can sort of, you're fond of saying this, it's choose your own adventure, really, about how you want to perceive what he said. You can listen to the Ohio State press conference, which is on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out, and think that Ryan Day said nothing, or you can think you could have listened to it and thought that he was pretty clear that there were some serious changes that happened in the last week, and that now moving forward, Jim Knowles is the head coach of the defense, but Ryan Day's like, and I'm a part of this now. And I think he understands, like, this is his job on the line. So to just leave it to Jim Knowles, and maybe Jim Knowles doesn't have the force of personality that you need to demand that sort of change to happen, or maybe the doesn't have the juice program-wise to do that. Ryan Day does. It's his program.
I kind of think Jim Knowles might.
I think he might, but I don't think...
I bet he can yell at people if he wants to.
I don't think it's being heard in a way that Ryan Day's voice... If Ryan Day's saying the same things that Jim Knowles is saying, and let's just assume that they're on the same page and other coaches are not, I think that having the reinforcement from Ryan Day in that setting matters a lot. And I think... From what I heard from people around the program in the last week while they were not here, that definitely happened.
Yeah, I think that Wednesday meeting that was subtly referenced to at least once and maybe twice, I think that was the pivotal turning point for Ohio State. And it's going to determine where this coaching staff goes, where the defense goes, whether this team can reach its goals at the end of the year. I think that's, if you're going to, right over here it says fight, but on this one on my left it says tough love. If you're going to live by those mantras, that needs to also apply to the coaching staff. And we said that a year ago in relation with Parker Fleming, or transition with Perry Eliano, Corey Dennis no longer being here. At the time, I certainly still would have included Larry Johnson in that, and certainly whether that is whoever you want to assign any blame for, Larry Johnson, Jim Knowles, both, Ryan Day, it doesn't matter. All of them need to be having honest conversations about what's happening in the big games, because the statistical production and the win-loss record is undeniable, and nobody's trying to hide from that.
Bill, am I wrong in thinking that, like, multiple things can be true here? Like, A, the pass rush isn't nearly good enough. B, Ryan Day believes that the talent is good enough. C, the schemes don't match up between what Jim Knowles wants and what Larry Johnson wants. But also D, the roster is built in a way that is more suited for what Larry Johnson wants.
E is all of the above.
I would agree with most of those things. I don't. It's hard because I do think,
because Ryan Day even went back and said this is what our defensive line is best suited for.
Yeah,
do we believe that?
I believe that they have forever recruited to a 4-down defensive scheme, and that they hired a defensive coordinator who didn't run one. That is true. But I don't know that means you have to play a 4-down all the time, right? If that's your 4-2-5 base, yes, that's fine. That makes sense. But Do you have to do it all the time?
Right.
Do you always have to be
always? It's not 4-2-5 always.
Sub packages exist for a reason, and the only time Ohio State ever really gets into them, and I guess you consider the 4-3 one now at this point, is when they're playing a heavy run team, or if they're in super obvious third and long passing situations when they put a dime back out there and play 60 Bs with 3 defensive linemen. You just don't see them like move their front or bring guys up, and like it just seems that like I'm saying things people already know because they watch the games too. Like it's very out of sorts. It has been in the biggest moments, and it sounds to me like they had some really honest conversation about all of that, and that they're trying to and feel like they have formulated a better plan for that moving forward. And the thing Ryan Day said a couple times, which goes to the Nick Saban antiquated quote, is like, we cannot continue to just line up with 4 dudes and think we're going to win all the time, right? I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said, but that was my impression of what he said, is that they know that they need to be more multiple and exotic and disguising with their defense than they have been to this point.
Is there a difference in the tone when he says, we've heard Ryan Day in the past say, we need to fix this. Today he said, we will fix this. It's
being fixed. It will be fixed. Yeah, I think so. And I want to go back to what you mentioned, Berm, about a few weeks ago, and like when they weren't getting home. Ryan Day did mention, talking with JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, or talking about them at least, that maybe they needed to adjust expectations, and that some of just the pressure they're getting wasn't quite what they needed. I thought at that time, 3 weeks ago, Ryan Day was tacitly acknowledging that there was an issue getting home to the quarterback and impacting it to the level that they needed. Only because I'm combining that with watching Ryan Day get actively involved in the substitution and the personnel groupings that were going out there for the defensive line. Like, I feel like this problem has been festering for so long, and I don't mean this to sound like a silver lining, but like they almost had to have something happen like Oregon to bring about the change that is necessary.
I said it after the game. I felt that there's a world, and it's sort of a fun thing we all like to say now. We say that a lot. If you notice, in a world where Ohio State wins the Oregon game and learns nothing, is it better to lose the game and learn something when it happens in the middle point of a season that you're allowed to lose a game in? And I do, and Will Howard alluded to that as well for himself and for he's speaking primarily, I think, from the offensive point of view. But like, I do think that there's value there, because every one of these losses in the last couple of years has happened at the end of the year, and it sort of gets whitewashed by the time the season starts, and it's all rainbows and butterflies again. And this time you really can't avoid it. Like, if you don't change it, everyone in this building is not going to have a job in 4 months. So you better change it. And I really do think that losing this game against Oregon is going to be better for the program long term.
Yeah, I mean, they've not – some people like texted in, I think, that notion that Ryan Day has lost games, yes, but he hasn't really had the opportunity to apply the lessons learned from a loss like in the season, because typically the losses have been at the end of the year. The one time it wasn't was the Oregon game in 2021. And they did, like, they drastically changed after that, but they never had the personnel or the brain power in the building to like really make that work, right? They were just kind of doing what they could.
I mean, they plotted their way through that.
But I think they do now, right? I think if they have those hard conversations now, I kind of believe in the people they have here to get that right and look much better in the bigger games. So Will Howard really had the thread on needle there between saying like it's okay to, like, it's not okay to lose. You want to win every game, but it happened and you can't do anything about it now. So the only thing you can do is like make sure it doesn't happen again. Actually take the lessons learned, move forward, and be better from it.
Yeah, maybe he saw and learned from what C.J. Stroud had said in previous editions of the Michigan game.
Yes.
Like, not going to put this soundbite in the world. He did walk up and straddle that line.
He did.
But he talked to Will Howard specifically talked about the practices last week, that the team that was out on this field was ticked off, pissed off, certainly motivated. He had said after the game, that losing lit a fire under them. And, I took that maybe too far. He said that it wasn't that they were complacent or that they weren't being coached hard. But, that was a Tim Tebow-esque type speech today where he's like, we're going to take that because we're never going to feel that again. And he made reference to that game being on the road and the turnovers in the first half, that on a neutral field or at home, that maybe the outcome would be different. Now, I think that's a shift from last week, and seeing that everyone else around the country is beatable. They knew they were close to beating Oregon on the road, who's now the number one team. I think maybe it does go back to what you're saying, Berm, that they're in that point where they can shift towards back being really confident again, even though they haven't played yet.
I don't. Nobody really asked, like, is the timing of this off week that you just went through good or bad? I mean, someone, I think one of the Lantern kids said, "Is it good?" And I don't know that it's good. I do think that Ohio State is very clearly like champing at the bit to try to get back to work.
Yeah,
because you don't really gain anything by hitting each other out here, and then obviously rumblings of injuries that happened in practice and stuff like that, like Lathan Ransom, who Ryan Day did not confirm or deny that, but it certainly seemed to me like if there wasn't an issue, he would have said, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get back out and start fixing this. For a lot of the guys, especially the offense, Will Howard said, like, he thought the offense did a pretty fine job. They scored 31 points. They left some points on the board, obviously, and so much of a focus is on the last 6 seconds. But they had the ball 4 times in the second half, and they had a third down that was a drop snap where it felt like a scoring drive.
I feel like a go win the game kind of drive.
And you had a 3rd and 1 carry by Travion Henderson where he clearly missed a hole that was open. And like that, the second half looks entirely different in those moments. So there are things you can nitpick the offense. But for Will Howard, I want to give him kudos again for being willing to just stand up there and take the questions. What do you guys feel? And again, this is not like Ryan Day isn't saying we're not sending out the coordinators necessarily. I don't know if that's how that works, but not getting Jim Knowles today, is there anything about that rubs you guys the wrong way? I mean, I know you talked about it on the Morning Daily, but
I would have liked to ask him questions. Yeah, I guess like I understand the one voice speaks for everybody, and it should be the head coach doing that
in a crisis, right? Like,
but Ryan Day is not a defensive coach, and probably would have been able to get a little more.
Now.
Well, he is the head coach who is ultimately in charge of everything that happens within the building. And I'm not saying he doesn't know anything about defense; he does, but he's not the one calling the defense on Saturdays, right? He's not the one who's ultimately implementing the plan now moving forward. That would be Jim Knowles, so it would have been nice to hear from him about it.
When Bill and I talked about that this morning, I think I was probably more annoyed by that change than I am after that press conference. And the key to me that's different is he's saying everyone in that meeting room is on the same page. And that page needs to be Ryan Day's page. Mm-hmm. So if they disagree with that, worst case scenario, they're still trying to figure out what that page is for everybody in that room. I don't think that that's the case. I think that probably was hashed out last week. But if that's still the process, if they need to go play a game first for the defensive staff to be able to talk about that, if you're in the midst of these getting back to the practice field and getting ready for Nebraska, I think I understand it. And I understood it this morning too. I've never had any issue that I was actually upset about it, just mildly annoyed. But if the point is, Ryan Day's been in the meetings, coaches maybe they hash things out, and then when they leave, they're on the same page. But right now, the page only needs to say Ryan Day's words. I understand it.
There was information in Ryan Day's answers about the defense too that
we wouldn't normally
get. We would not normally get, which I guess like help balance that out a little bit. I still would have very much liked to talk to him, but part of my annoyance with it before today was I didn't think Ryan Day was going to say anything about the defense.
Which part are you latching onto there?
About what he said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stuff about the fronts and not being so static in what they've done, and that they're not coaching defense well enough, and that the scheme has let them down a little bit.
It seemed definitive in what he said. So that is interesting. My issue with Jim Knowles not speaking is that the last time we talked to him was immediately after the game, and you could tell he was still shell-shocked and very not able to be cerebral in discussing what happened. And while the fix is obviously important and probably the most important thing moving forward, I think that there's still a responsibility to say this is what went wrong and this is why we think it went wrong, instead of just saying we're moving on. I mean, I get people, you have to move on, but I think that to really inform yourselves about what happened, I think it would have been good to just have 15 minutes of him saying, I should have forced Jermaine Matthews into the game. We should have done that, just something else different.
Yeah, I'm sure when they have 6 sacks against Nebraska, because Nebraska's offensive line isn't good, I'm sure we'll talk to them.
Probably. Remember a week and a half ago, we were in a hotel in Salem, Oregon, and we're like, this Ryan Day feels like he's back to his old self and personality. That was the deep down murderous competitive version that we saw today.
I mean, again, and I know people think we're accused of being colored glasses or whatever. We are fortunate to be able to get to talk to Ryan Day sometimes in personal conversations. I don't think he's any different in personal conversation than he is up at the podium. I never buy into this idea that he's like politicizing answers or just word salading his way through things, but he seems pretty...
Oh, if he doesn't want to answer a question, he will not.
Right, and he's pretty focused, though. And I like what I thought today was as good as he was going to give. And yeah, people would love to know, why is there really a disconnect between Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles? Of course there is. Like, we know that. It's been broadcasted for a year plus. So, but for people to be upset that Ryan Day isn't at the podium airing out dirty laundry, like, that's never going to happen.
It's not a place to air out laundry. Yeah, I would recommend doing that in your basement, your home washroom.
There's a lot of people in
air out laundry in the basement. That's how you get mold.
Oh, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it's very...
I've never aired out laundry.
Yeah. You air out laundry outside.
Got it. That makes much more sense.
Great personal tip from Berm to wrap up Snap Judgment. See, you can always find some value, even if it's not.
I learned something.
Yeah, we're trying to bring something every single day. Get 1% better. And hopefully we did that with Snap Judgments on the podcast. It's Tuesday. It is Nebraska week. Back to one day closer, the Buckeyes being back on the field. Looking forward to it. Saturday, noon in the Horseshoe. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us for Snap Judgments. We'll see you tomorrow for the Daily.